So today's class we will be looking at certain headlines from the Indian Express or the Hindu, whatever newspaper you take. But overall, today's class is about the whole concept of economic growth. Okay, we will see how we can use the articles here. Okay, the articles given in this newspaper and the headlines to understand the basics of GS3, economic growth and development. See, the objective of this discussion is to help you understand the pattern as well as the trend of economic growth. What is the difference between pattern and trend? Let us see. What is the headline here? India is now the fourth largest economy in the world. This is the fact. Fourth largest economy. What is the implication of this news? Can anyone tell me what does this mean? Fourth largest economy. What do you understand basically? See, I want your participation. Think or try to articulate a news that you understand. The growth as a metric. Basic economic classes are done, right? What is GDP? GDP is the sum of goods, services in 1 year. Okay? So when I'm saying, okay, even simplifying it further, let's say we have a cake. If there is a competition globally about the size of the cake, which country has the largest cake? The fourth largest cake is owned by India. We have overtaken which country? Japan. Now, is this something that we should celebrate? That's the big question. Okay, because look at the population of Japan and look at the population of India. Let's say, for example, you have in one of the classes I gave you this example. There are 4 people in the class and I have a cake. I can divide it into 4 equal parts. Each one of you will get at least enough to satiate yourself. Okay. Now, if there are 40 people, overall, there is nothing that you can eat. What happens as a result? There is instability in the society, chaos in the society. So, growth is a prerequisite for redistribution. Okay. What is the ultimate purpose of the state? It is to ensure that the final end product is not growth. It is redistribution and welfare. There are 2 different things. Growth and development are not the same. Is that clear? So, does this headline have any real meaning in the concept of welfare? It has a certain meaning. It's the first step towards development. But this cannot be a metric to say that we are doing well. What are the other metrics? So, this is the discussion. The first dimension is understanding the concept of growth. Here at the prelims level, you are expected to know the difference between GDP and GVA. I'm not going into that basic economy discussion. This is a prerequisite. I'm expecting you to go through the difference between GDP and GVA. Okay, that's the first takeaway. The second takeaway is learning the skill of articulating your viewpoint from an economy standpoint, from a GS3 standpoint. Clear? What do I mean by this? When I say I am looking at a developmental paradigm, or if I am saying that the concept that I am interested is development, not growth alone, what is the framework or what is the metric through which I have to judge that development? So for this, we will be looking at the explained article here. This one, what latest economic data show. We'll get back to that. But let's see broadly what this article is saying. Okay. Now, this article is saying that we have to focus on inclusive growth. What do I mean by that growth? Inclusive growth means a broad-based growth. Now, what do I mean by this broad-based growth? Okay. Broad means all the sectors are made to feel like they're participants of this economy. What do I mean by sectors? Anyone? What sectors am I talking about? Sectors of economy. Primary, secondary, tertiary. All the sectors should be equally participating in the concept of growth. That's the first metric. Okay, that's the first metric of inclusive growth. Okay, all of them are participating. Which sections are getting the fruits of this development? So these sections are the sections from a social standpoint. So when I'm talking about the sections or sectors of economy, it is a pure economics concept. But after that, it is about social sciences, GS1. From GS3, core economy, to GS1, Indian society. Sections include various sections who are vulnerable. The reasons for those vulnerabilities will be explained in GS1. Caste, gender, regionalism, communalism. It's about power metrics. Social structures are linked to power. What gives power to that section of the society is understood in GS1. Okay. Once you understand that, GS1 will be about society, right? Casteism, patriarchy, all this will create an end effect of vulnerability to those sections. The end objective of this inclusive growth is to understand the reasons for that social exclusion which creates vulnerability. That is where you have to understand the concept of intersectionality, and from there you have to come back to GS2, that is vulnerable sections as a policy, as a syllabus topic. GS2, vulnerable sections. Okay. In that vulnerable sections, you will have gender, labor, age-related, vulnerability, disabilities, whether it is the social disability, physical disability. Social disabilities means discrimination. Physical disabilities means natural deformities which create challenges. Again, link it back to the concept of intersectionality. You have to understand and create policies in the framework of rights. So we are moving from GS3 to GS1. You understood the prerequisite is growth. Then you want to understand the reasons for that vulnerabilities, and from there on you want to come to GS2 and create policy frameworks, and from there, not from there, I mean these policy frameworks should reflect a certain philosophy that will correct these problems, right? Where is that philosophy? In the first part. See, this GS2 is governance. This is the second part. That governance is based on a certain framework. What is that framework? Indian Constitution, which is there in GS1. And this, sorry, GS2 part 1. And this constitutionalism reflects a certain ethical framework that is there in GS4. This is how you are supposed to interlink this topic of growth. Now, this question should be understood throughout the syllabus like this. But if the same question is asked only in the context of GS3, how should we view this article and present our arguments? That is the third takeaway. What is the first takeaway? Understanding the concept of GDP and GVA. Second concept is understanding the interlinkages between various parts of the syllabus from this newspaper standpoint. And the third is coming to the core economic aspects and the subdimensions of our argument. Here is where you have to understand the concept of trend as well as pattern. Okay. Now, when I say trend, when I say pattern, can anyone tell me the difference between a trend and a pattern? What? This is about what? What is happening? Pattern is about how, where. Trend is about what is happening, the direction of change. Pattern is about the depth. How is it happening? In the context of economy, when you have three sectors, the primary sector, agriculture, manufacturing and services, trend is about what is the direction, is it increasing or decreasing? Pattern is about depth. For example, when you talk about the services sector, okay, where is the growth coming from? Is it coming from IT? Is it coming from hospitality? Is it coming from, real estate services or any other parameter within the concept of the services? That is pattern. There are certain landmarks when you are comparing your economic trajectory. Especially in the case of India, you need to understand how UPSC frames those phases, uses those phases to frame questions. For example, the first phase that you need to talk about is the 1991. What happened in 1991? Liberalization, privatization and globalization. Then you have the 2008. What happened here? Global economic crisis, the global financial crisis. Then you have 2014. What happened here? The government changed. So this is NDA. Because this phase marked the difference of reforms. I mean, the pathway that we have taken, the trajectory we have taken is more towards reform, economic reforms, policy reforms. Clear? That is the 2014 phase. Next up is what happened here? COVID, economic collapse, and now present. Okay. So when you are comparing the various phases of economy, you have to look at both the trends as well as patterns, horizontal change and vertical change. You create it like a matrix in this various phases. Okay. So once you understand how this economy is shaping up in various phases, you will be able to appreciate both the trend as well as pattern. Now, what is the immediate nature of growth? Okay. What is the immediate nature of growth here? What happened just after the liberalization? See, this phase was marked by opening up of economy. So whatever fiscal constraints we had, what do you mean by fiscal constraints? So there are certain metrics of our economy. These metrics are important to judge the quality of our economy. The first one obviously is GDP. Second one is sectoral growth, different sectors. Third one is inflation. Fourth one is foreign exchange reserves. Fifth one is fiscal deficit. Sixth, please note this metrics down. These are extremely important. And if you get any questions, if you don't use these metrics to argue your viewpoint, you are not going to do well. Current account deficit. So these metric data should be on your fingertips for different phases in 1991, 2008, 14, 20, 25. This is the way in which you have to present your argument. Okay. Do you know the meaning of each of this? Will be tested in your prelims level. Can you analyze in different phases through data driven arguments? Will be tested in mains. And how will you use this present shape and your ability to predict the future trajectory? That will be tested in your interview. Your persona, your perception towards how Indian economy is shaping up will be tested in interview. And for that decision making, you have to reverse engineer, and right from day one you need to have a clear cut trajectory as to what our opinion should be like. Sticking to logical basics is what we should be focusing on. With this understanding, let's look at what this article writer is trying to say. Let me come back to the news. What is the news? India is the 4th largest economy, meaning we have the 4th largest cake if there is a competition of who has the biggest cake in the world. That is not good enough because we are chasing headlines, right? And if you have to link this philosophically, if you were in the interview and if you were asked to form an opinion and come back to the first stage, even before you are reading any of this, would you be happy with cosmetic changes when your body inside is rotting? No, right? Is it, if you really respect your body, is it okay? I know there can be problems, but at least even if you are not able to do something, that's fine. But if you are not able to accept that there is fundamentally wrong, something wrong inside our body, and you behave like everything is fine, do you really think there is hope? No, right? So this is where the quality of democracy comes into the picture. The importance of freedom of speech, dissent, etc. All of this will be a part of the quality aspect. Are we demanding accountability? Is there transparency in the systems? Is the governance being accountable? Is it yielding outcomes? All of this will form the basis of our judgment when we are seated in the interview. But what is shaping those narratives? What are the roadblocks? What is the reality? What is the rhetoric? Your ability to analyze and judge and tell, okay, to this extent this is fine, but this is overblown. For example, when we were talking about the discussion about the importance of dissent in democracy and have taken that case of Ashoka University professor Mahmoodabad, Ali Khan Mahmoodabad, okay, versus state of Haryana. In that we discussed the quality of democracy is very important. Is it reasonable? The doctrine of reasonableness is used to say, okay, till this extent it's fine, but the timing can be better. Your ability to articulate an issue driven by the final need of this country is what sets you apart from the rest of the crowd. So this is how the overall argument should shape up. The quality of democracy depends on the wisdom of the people. The wisdom of the people will demand accountability from government, which is not supposed to just chase headlines, but fix the basics. Your accountability mechanisms should be driven by data, granular data. What do I mean by this? Granular data means everything that is very specific, indicator rich and real time, data based governance. Okay, so it is in this context we have to look at this article. Clear? So so that you are not lost, I am briefly summing up the entire issue. Where did we start? We understood you are expected to know the difference between GDP and GVA. Then we understood second metric. What is the second takeaway? You are lost already. The concept of inclusive growth. Third, patterns and trends. Now we are talking about, if you are seated in the interview stage, the philosophy with which you have to drive your argument. The quality of democracy. We have spoken about the implication of inclusive growth. The reasons for the differences in the social indicators come from your understanding of Indian society, GS1, casteism, okay, regionalism, patriarchy. All this will create certain amount of vulnerabilities which you have to fix through your policies which are there in GS2. The policy framework is based on constitution, first part of GS2. That constitution will have a ethical implication which is there in GS4. By having this framework, we understood the various phases of our economy and analyzed them through econometrics, the metrics that you are using to argue your point. And next up, we are looking at the interview stage, the philosophy with which you have to guide your arguments, so that from prelim stage to GS1, GS2, GS3, ethics, interview, essay, this issue is a 360-degree roundup. Okay, clear? Now let's go back and see the overall analysis here. The central point that the writer is trying to say is, of course, it's good that our cake is larger than Japan's, but are we really enjoying that cake? Are the citizens getting to enjoy that cake? Because the writer says no, but it will just be an opinion, not a fact, if it doesn't substantiate. Just like in your answers, you are expected to show me some data to prove that. If you are not able to prove that, you are not going to get marks. What is the writer's assertion here? Understanding of the population. You have a big cake, that's fine, but what is the population? Not everyone is getting enough. The metric that he used is per capita income. If the per capita income of Japan is somewhere around $33,000, if I'm not wrong, there is somewhere within this article. Just check the data once. Okay, yeah, $33,900. Take a look at India's per capita GDP. It is just 2,800. Is this real growth? No, right? And a real patriot demands accountability and the quality of the growth. Is it coming at the cost of our lifestyle? Of what use is wealth when you don't have peace, when you don't have happiness. So the quality of growth is also supposed to come into the picture. So this is the philosophical part or the direction of your argument. But if you have to argue that through economic logic, these are the metrics. We have to have a stable economic growth which is based on the idea of sustainability. Not just environmental sustainability but also policy sustainability. Then you have to look at the broad-based growth where all the sectors of economy are supposed to focus on efficiency, not just outcomes. It is of no use if you are putting 10 rupees into a business. If it is yielding 1 rupee, will you call that a business? No, right? I just described agricultural sector's biggest problem. Agriculture is not viewed in this country as a business, which is a problem. Why shouldn't agriculture become a business? That is the whole point. How much of profit, that's a different thing. When I say business, the reason why I am calling it it is supposed to be a business is because if a farmer gives in an input X and if he is getting an output which is less than X, how will he sustain? Of course the government should intervene. Of course the government is supposed to give MSP, is supposed to give subsidies. It's linked to the social structure. A rural agrarian based economy cannot after a point of time continue to grow in population without fixing its economic problem. Too many people depending on agriculture. Your population grows, you're not skilled. A family has 10 kids and you have to divide the land into 10 different properties, and each of that land is not more than 2 hectares, which leads us to the problem of a social fragmentation, not just land fragmentation. The concept of land is linked to society, family, breakup of joint family system, nuclearization of families. Why is it happening? Of course it's happening because of economy. Sectoral integration. How do we make agriculture better? By looking at it as a business. Second up, manufacturing. We have Make in India. We have production linked incentive, PLI scheme. It's not working. What's the problem? So each of this sector is a problem statement in itself. You can get a standalone question in that, or the overall philosophy of the constitution, of the economic growth story based on constitutional values. Second up, manufacturing. Why is it not growing? Simply put, you put in money, there is no money. First of all, let's say you put in money, you get harassed by the government, there is no ease of doing business. I'm talking about the previous phases. That indicator has slightly gotten better due to digitization. That's a governance reform. We'll come back to that. Okay, everything is fixed. You have land, you have labor, everything. This capital, but it is still not export competitive, because unless manufacturing caters to the global markets, you cannot expect growth. Okay, because there are other countries which have a head start. When you want to let's say for example, I want this pen, it's most likely imported from China. The panels, the equipment, everything in this room is most likely imported from China. If there is a manufacturing facility in India about any of these products, take these ACs, anything, definitely there is some origin or some association with China. At max in India, all we are doing is trying to assemble them and ship it. That's not good enough for our economy. We need to do better. We need to improve our positioning in the global value chains. What does this mean? Global value chains, we have spoken about logistics, the supply chain, where high manufacture, high volume as well as value manufacturing is happening in countries like China. That is why if a COVID like pandemic happens, companies are moving out of China. IR relation. And India in this China plus one strategy framework has an economic opportunity. but we don't have skill, we don't have capital. Okay, capital will come in. Let's imagine that we have taken policy reforms, but what about the skills? We don't have skills. We have students who are chasing degrees, who take pride in percentages. I mean, I don't want to sound like a hypocrite. I probably might be one of them. Are we building world-class products? It's not because we are incompetent. It's because our economic structures have stagnated for long to become just suppliers of human capital. The cream is getting exported. If I have to say what is the largest export product of India to the world, I would say human beings. Take a look at every global CEO, global company CEOs, MNCs. Now they have Indian origin. We are losing our cream. It's a flight of capital. Now, this is the sectoral problem. Third, inflation. This refers to the structure of our economy and the policies taken, both monetary and fiscal. Monetary means banking level, RBI. There is a limit to how much RBI's policies can have an impact on the society. You also need to have fiscal measures. And when you are looking at fiscal measures, you are going back to the formula of GDP. G is equal to C plus I plus G plus X minus M. We are looking at this investment. Again, look at the patterns and trends. Patterns means the direction. So this is the period where you have seen a boom, 2000 to 2008. In 2007, if you take a look at the statistical data, this I, generally the methodology used by economists to show data is calculating each of this component as a percentage of GDP. So if this is 100, what is I's value in it? Ideally, I is investment, right? So if you invest in an economy, the purpose of that investment is to see some return. There will be some time lag. Okay. But if you are investing in C, you will just consume it today and it's gone. Should we have that kind of an economic pattern? No, right? We obviously want I. But I is politically very uncomfortable. You invest now and wait for 15 years. A classic case to the point being Delhi Metro or let's say Hyderabad Metro. If a particular government lays the foundation stone, it's only fair that they feel like taking credit for it. Whether there is corruption involved, all that is fine. But they want to win elections. Political parties want to come back into power so that they continue their agenda. But the problem is, this I will have long gestation periods. Again, it comes back to the wisdom of the people. Are we capable enough to judge the quality of investments? That is why debates are important, information is important. Article 19, right to freedom, right to information is important because it helps us in taking informed judgments. So this is overall a concept class, okay, not just a headline class. This is how we are supposed to think for your interview. I'm reverse engineering. Interview, then essay, then ethics. The complexity of your personality becoming a liability in this exam is in this order. Highest risk of your personality is in interview. Second highest, essay. Third highest, ethics. Fourth, GS3, GS2, and finally GS1. And if you have a risk in the language papers, then it is completely upon you. You should not have that language paper risk. You should take responsibility of that and fix it. Okay. This is the overall understanding of this article. Now let's go back to that economic data. You understood all these points, you have noted these points down. GDP, sectoral growth, inflation, foreign exchange reserves, fiscal deficit, current account deficit. If you take a look at today's article in the Hindu, in the economy page, you have seen that there is a headline which says, you can go back and read it. Government's target, fiscal deficit target is well within the range of 4.6. What is the meaning of fiscal deficit? What is the implication of this number? Basics. You have had 2 questions in 2025 prelims on the concept of economic deficits, fiscal deficit and primary deficit. It's your duty to understand that concept today itself and fix it. If you can't have these basics, it's difficult to clear prelims exam. Okay, if you don't understand fiscal deficit, irrespective of the fact whether your economy classes are done, don't wait for the classes. It's your exam. You have to be proactive enough to fix them. Okay, so this is the overall philosophy of the entire economy. Now let's go to the granular level data, which is given in the explained page. Yeah, this is it. Can we zoom this? I don't know. Okay, anyway. See, the question here is, what latest economic data show? Look at how the article is creating questions for you to understand the structure of this article. How is economic growth and national income measured? This is the first question. Growth and national income. Is this something that you have to read from newspapers? Not necessary. It is there in your basics. So this part, wherever you are seeing how is national income measured, even if you don't understand, even if you don't read, there is nothing that is going to change for you. So if you already know, you can skip this part. Here basically they are telling the difference between GDP, GVA and all that. Then they are asking about budget, the concept of budget, estimates, etc. Then they are talking about nominal GDP and real GDP. You need to know the difference between nominal and real. What is the difference? Inflation. So if you don't know the difference, if you don't know the concept of inflation, if you don't know the difference of nominal, real and GDP, go back to your economy classes and read that. This is not an economy class, so I cannot explain everything in detail. I am expecting that you know this. So your task is to read this economic data article through the lens of our entire discussion that we have had in the past half an hour. Okay. So what are the key takeaways given in this article? Nominal GDP growth. How much is it? Real GDP growth. How much is it? What is the final implication of this data? Okay. We already discussed all of these points, but broadly you have to substantiate it, right? This table, you have to take a look at it, note it down in your notes and use this data to frame your arguments. That is the purpose of this. Okay, clear? So I'll briefly conclude as to how you are supposed to prepare on this topic of development. No matter what question is asked, you need to look at a framework to really judge. We talked about the kind of economy we want. If you have to present your arguments, you need to have a clear-cut framework, parameters, right? So let's discuss those parameters. Firstly, if you take across different phases from 91 to 2025, the first paradigm shift or the way in which our economy is shifting, the policy discourse, on what metric are we arguing? It is no longer about growth. The first change, is from growth we have moved towards productivity. Productivity. That should be clearly visible in your arguments. If not, you don't understand the structural shifts in our economy. Importance is not on growth, because I'll tell you why. Inequality. Without addressing this problem of inequality, growth means nothing. But if you don't grow, you cannot redistribute. This is the paradox. And if that growth is coming because of nominal GDP, that is inflation, taxes, it is not growth again. For an input, if you are getting an output of X, the focus should be on making it 2X. Efficiency. This is where scientific temper comes into the picture. What is the quality of science? So, productivity is measured by a metric called ICOR, incremental capital output ratio. For a unit capital, how much cost is it incurring to produce for a unit output, how much cost are we incurring? That is ICOR, incremental capital output ratio. And this is linked to GS3, science and tech. And in this, we are not just talking about the quality of science. Again, it is linked to the concept of budgeting. How much percentage of GDP are we allotting for R&D? And how much of it is seeing an outcome? Do you realize how complicated governance can be? AI cannot fix this. Yes, Bhaga. Growth is an outcome if the point of view is temporal. You are starting in 1991, you are judging the growth. You are judging the trajectory of policy through growth. But that is a prerequisite, like I told you, for development. You have to change your point of comparison. You have to change, you have to move away from growth towards productivity.
So what I'm trying to say is that now we are comparing ourselves as fourth largest in terms of size of the thing. But shouldn't we in fact compare ourselves with ICOR or any of those things?
That's the whole point of our argument. So, what is the point of having this vanity metrics? What is the point of India being the fourth largest economy when we can't improve the quality of lives of our people?
So what I'm trying to say is that instead of outcomes, you compare yourself with inputs straight for outcomes. Like
Exactly. That's the whole argument.
then should the rankings be based on that instead of this?
Yeah.
Why is it not?
There is no, it's a game of optics. Not just US. Any country. US is the largest country in the world in terms of the size of economy. So isn't it fair that we expect it to have the lowest Gini coefficient? Another economics metric which shows inequality. Right. Gini coefficient, take a look at which country has, Gini coefficient means, those who don't know, it's a metric which measures inequality. The index ranges between 0 and 1. Higher the number, higher the inequality. Or is it lower? Higher or lower? Basics. As we move towards 1, is the country supposed to be more equal or unequal? The society. Why is there a doubt? Should tell with confidence. Okay, homework. Go back and check. See, use your logic. You have to have your concepts correctly. Understand the basics. There should not be an element of doubt and things like this. This is where you will falter in prelims. Okay. Okay. Now go back and see the quality of growth, inequality. Ideally, the largest economy should have the least inequality. Everyone should be prosperous. But you would be surprised to know that the numbers are not adding up.
But sir, again, this is also a paradox, right? For example, I mean, to make it convenient, we are comparing. But for example, how do you compare a capitalist economy with respect to a socialist economy in terms of gain? Because for
See,
example,
capitalism and socialism are the means that you have chosen. And we have come to a conclusion that democracy is the best form of government, nothing else will work.
so when we compare capitalist versus socialist in GDP coefficient, of course the capitalist will have inequalities, right?
Why should it be like that? That's my whole question. See, you are questioning the basis of you're questioning theory. I'm questioning the intent. What is the point of democracy when you don't belong to it? When you have no say in it? But when I say you belong to it and when you have a say in it, it's equally important to question your worth in it. Not everyone is equal. But the one who is contributing the most should not be feeling the left out. That is the whole point of capitalist system. But just because you are contributing to the society so much, isn't it fair that we are just trying to ensure that you are using something from the country, contribute it back in a proportionate way? Concentration of wealth to an extent where a section of society feels threatened, impoverished, and angry is a threat. Poverty is a threat for justice. There is this famous quotation from Martin Luther King, the Jr. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Or something on those lines. Poverty anywhere is a threat to prosperity everywhere. Something on those lines. UPSC asked a essay question on this. You can write whatever discussion we have had now as a part of that essay. Clear? So, argue your points with the data, with metrics, and project yourself. So, we are talking about the kind of growth story we need to have. The first metric, the paradigm shift from growth towards productivity. Next up, institutional capacity. This is about GS2, governance. Here, we are talking about a 3F plus F framework. Funds, functions, functionaries, and functionality. If your institutions do not have funds, they cannot do anything. If they don't have functions clearly defined by a law through procedural integrity established by rule of law, the second F, they don't have hope. Third one, functionaries. You give them money, you give them power, but the people who are in those institutions are inefficient and incapable of getting the task done. It will impact the final F, functionality, the very purpose with which they are existing. This 3F framework is given by second ARC. This F is my addition after reading some articles. It's not my addition, it is addition from newspaper columnists, etc. It's not an official entry yet in many documents. That's the reason it is 3F plus F. Here, if you want to improve this functionality, I am introducing one more layer of federalism. Okay, federal. A classic case to the point being state PCS. If you cannot have the ability to conduct a state PCS exam fairly, we should do something about it. Either we have to outsource it to UPSC or reform the PSCs. Only two options available. What is the long-term solution? You don't want a centralizing tendency. You want to really put democracy in the hands of the people. So build the institutional capacity at the state level. Centralization is never an answer for systemic inefficiencies. Unity is not uniformity. Please remember this. You have to focus on building strength of the institutions. Give them funds, functions, functionaries, so that they are functional and serving the purpose they exist for. That is the second thing. Now, another I that we have to focus on is innovation. If we want to improve the quality of our democracy, we've spoken about productivity, institutional capacity. Third one is innovation. See, this is the framework that I'm talking about. Innovation in terms of R&D. So in your GS3 syllabus, you also have another topic called intellectual property rights. There is a whole regimen involved in that discussion on IPR. We'll get back to that some other day, but if you are interested to know right now, you can take down this list of topics as a part of your homework. The first one being IPR policy 2016. Okay, even before that, if you don't know what is an IPR, what is an IPR? Anyone? What is an IPR? Intellectual property rights. It is an idea or a concept that you need to protect as a right. Let's say you build a product. If I invented a drug that can cure cancer and I invested billions in it, it's only fair that the company wants to patent it. But here comes a conflict. State is here to ensure welfare to its people. Companies exist and they invest billions into that drug manufacturing or discovery with an intent to make money out of it. So profit making versus state's responsibility comes into a clash. How do we deal with this conflict is dealt under the IPR framework and the laws therein. Different countries have different laws. In India, we have the patent law, the copyright law, and a slew of other laws which are supposed to be helping both the citizens as well as the participants in this economy. Innovation is linked to IPR. So you need to know the laws associated with it. National Intellectual Property Rights Policy 2016. What are its objectives? This is a previous year question actually in mains. What are the objectives of the national policy on IPR? How far we have achieved? What are the steps taken by the government to achieve some progress on this front? Why is there a problem? What should we do? This is a standalone question with respect to innovation. Another angle that you can get a question is innovation and gender gap. Why do we have women not participating in STEM? Science, technology, engineering and which one? Medicine. Okay. Gender parity. How much gender parity do we have? There is something called leaky pipe syndrome, where women are dropping out of research. How do we address that? What are the schemes available? That is the next dimension. Okay, innovation is done, productivity, institutions, innovation. Next up is employment. Quality of employment, quality of jobs. See, what is the purpose of a job? What is the purpose of a job? To earn, that's not enough. To earn a dignified life. Human dignity. The end objective of any activity of human beings is to sustain that quality of dignified life. What is dignity here? Basic needs. health, education, social security, that is, health insurance, your provident fund, all of these are available to all the citizens. And in an economy where 90% of the workers are informal, what do we know about the quality of jobs? Whatever jobs that we are taking, whatever debates we're having, is about this 10% of the population who are actually on government roles. Okay. Now let's look at the other side of the coin. What about the 1% of income taxpayers who are feeding the rest of the country? Only 1% salaried middle class. Let's say you're a software engineer earning 50 lakhs. You end up paying as much as 36% of that money as tax to the government. 30 to 36% depending on how you plan your taxes. Isn't it fair that this salaried class demands that, okay, we want something back for whatever you are contributing? And it's basic services, clean roads, clean environment. So the needs of this segment of population will not be the same as those who are actually coming out and voting. The problem with this 1% middle class are, I would still say, even if you are earning 50 lakhs, you are still in middle class because you are stuck in a EMI loop. The quality of life is still the same. You move to a bigger house, but you're always tensed. How do I repay if I lose a job? That's the reality of the salaried middle class. How will you address them? The problem with this section of the society is that they don't come out and vote. Look at the voting percentage. Let's say, for example, Hyderabad, 29% in the last general election. What else will you expect? Why will the government care about you? The quality of democracy depends on your participation. The so-called educated section is so cynical about the improvement prospects, and on the contrary, look at the rural patterns. Look at the districts where there is high voting percentage, 70%, 80%, 90%. Why is this happening? And of course, it's obvious that governments will prioritize the freebies, so-called freebies, that will put them back into power. And let's link that to the C plus I plus G plus X minus M. You only have limited resources. I only have 100 rupees. I would prefer to spend it here because it will put me back into power. And there is no one to question to sustain that kind of consumption driven growth. It's continuing. It's continuing to the point of brink where it's no longer sustainable. And this is what RBI is saying through its white papers. I am not saying it. Where do we fix this? Where should we start? Different sections have different needs, conflicting needs. The data is not really supportive. So it's all the more important to get back to basics. Health, education, social welfare, expenditure. All of this should be linked to an outcome. There should be a sunset clause. If something is not working, fix it or remove it. There's no point continuing it. And it is a responsibility of the governments to come out and say, boss, this is not working. We cannot afford to give freebies like this. And it's the responsibility of the civil society, the educated sections of the society, to mobilize that opinion and move collectively towards a better India tomorrow. And for this, we need ethics, values, understanding and the wisdom to make this country better each day. Into that kind of a nation, we should strive to step in. So this is the overall philosophy, the economics, the society, policy, GS1, social angle, that will overall shape the trajectory of our country's future. I hope this made sense. Try to create frameworks for respective papers from GS3, GS2, GS1, ethics, essay, and final year interview. This is how you have to frame your arguments. Now go back and read these articles, look at the facts to substantiate your arguments, and that's how you write better answers. Okay? That's it for the day. See you tomorrow.